a time. Yeah, this is tea time. Making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time. Making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time.
Well, welcome everybody. It is evening tea time, and I did it again. 3 shows, morning, afternoon, and evening. Tonight, I am super excited because I have a returning guest, and then you know how Miss Liz loves having guests return because then I get updates and I get to see a familiar face, and the ice is already broken from the last show. So I have Natasha Deen here, and she is an amazing best-selling author, teacher, and boss of her pets. That's right. If you looked in the video in the intro, you've seen that she is the best boss of the pets. So if anybody wants to be the boss of their pets, reach out to Natasha Deen because she's the girl for that. So I am super, super excited to have this tea time and to bring you some new books that Natasha has out. So Spooky Sloths 3 and 4. And as you've seen in the video, it's creative writing and it's going to be children's writing. We're going to talk about a lot of cool things tonight, and we're going to just spill a good tea. And if Natasha remembers, I'm going to ask her what her tea is. So we'll see if she can give me a good tea tonight. So we're going to do the disclaimer and then the bio, and then Natasha's going to slide in and we're going to spill some tea together. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz, myself, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, it may bring forward dialogues and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the giving time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to know that the show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in tonight's show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you decide that the show is not made for you at this time, I respect those wishes and will see you at a later show at a later date and time. And again, 2023, all shows are done on a Thursday, 10, 3, and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every Thursday, 3 live shows. And if it's not a Thursday, it's a rescheduled show or it's a surprise show because that's just how I roll. So stay tuned for that. And those are done on a Monday and a Tuesday. So now give me a little bit into Natasha Deen. Well, I'm not going to give me some info. I'm going to give you some. So Natasha Deen is a best-selling author who writes for kids, teens, and adults. Her novel is The Key of Nira Ghani, won the Amy Mother Teen Book Award. Spooky Sleuths, The Ghost Tree was a school library journal best book of 2022. And her most recent YA title, The Signs of the Wonders of Tuna, Rashad, was a Globe and Globe and Mail top 100 books for 2022. We're going to talk about that one because I just noticed that. Natasha is the Queen Elizabeth II Platinum Jubilee Medal recipient. When she's not writing, she's teaching introduction to children's writing with the University of Toronto, SCS, and spends an internet, I'm not sure, intronet amount of time trying to convince her pets that she's the boss of the house. And for more on Natasha, you can check out her website, which will be on the screen during the live screen. So let me get Natasha in here and let me get some tea. So welcome, Natasha.
Hello. Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me, and hello to the listeners. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, Natasha, it's always a pleasure when the guests come back, because then you know you're doing something right because they want to come back, right?
Yes, that's exactly true. Absolutely. And it was a lot of fun last time.
So, Natasha, I'm going to start off like I started off with everyone this year. Who were you as a little girl, and who are you now as a grown lady?
Oh, I love the idea that you think I am absolutely different than I was as a kid. So I am not. I still really want candy. I still really want a nap. I still just want to hang out with pets. And I still do not like schoolwork. So that is who I was, and that is who I continue to be.
I love it when the guests always say that I haven't really changed. Like, I still want my candy. I still, I love that about you, Natasha. Like, you're so like right there, right? So, Natasha, it's been almost a year since we've been together. So what in a year?
Oh, well, the Spooky Sleuth series came out, and that's just been like so much fun watching reader feedback and seeing young readers get into the story, and teachers telling us how much they love the books. There was also, like you said, the Signs and Wonders of Tuna Rashad. She was named a top 100 book for 2022 from the Globe and Mail, which was like just absolutely lovely. So it's just been a really, really fun year, and it's been a really fun year. I get a chance to write. I get a chance to, when I'm teaching, I'm basically just hanging out with fellow authors, and we're talking about writing and stories, and it's just, this once a week thing that we just get to lift each other up and have a great time, and bring these like wonderful stories into the world.
So these writing clubs, are they done at the University of Toronto, or are they done like around Toronto?
They are done. So the University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies, they offer some really, really excellent programming when it comes to creative writing. And they have 2 streams. So you can go in person and attend classes in person, or you can attend online. And for me, since I'm not based in Toronto, all the classes that I teach are online. And the lovely thing with the online classes is that they're all recorded. So you do not have to attend them live. So you are allowed to have a life and pursue your writing at the same time. And they actually have a certificate, I believe, for I'm trying to remember the title correctly. I think it's the certificate for creative writing. So they've got lots of good stuff there.
So, Natasha, you're talking about this new book that I've never even heard of. Is the YA title, "The Signs of the Wonders of Tuna Rashad"? What book? What was that book about?
So in the Signs and Wonders of Tuna Rashad, you have Tuna, who is an aspiring screenwriter, and it's the summer before she leaves home to go to school to become a professional screenwriter. And this summer, she's absolutely determined to finally go on a date with her uber crush, Tristan Dangerfield. And the only thing that's kind of stopping it is that Tuna's older brother, Robbie, he suffered a sudden loss. His husband died unexpectedly, and for the last year and a half, he's been sort of in this grief spiral. So Tuna decides through the summer she's going to get Robbie out of his grief, and then she's going to date Tristan. And so, you've got this this confluence of different things. And the thing that makes the book a lot of fun is that it is firmly steeped in Caribbean heritage. So Caribbean culture says that our ancestors, they watch over us, and they send signs and wonders to help us on our way, and to send these little messages that they are looking out for us and that they are taking part in our lives. So it's got a very cool little edge of magical realism in it. And though it does deal with grief and loss, it's actually quite a funny book. And so it's gotten really, really great feedback and really great reviews, and I'm terribly proud of it.
So what age group is that one for?
So Tuna is young adult, so she would be 12 and up. And I would say 12 and up, maybe 14 and up, just because grief, it can be kind of a hard thing to deal with. So depending on how your young reader reads and processes, they might want to wait a couple years before they dive into it.
So do you have any Caribbean bloodline in you? I thought you were from Ghana. Ghana.
No, no, I am from I am from Guyana, which is in South America. Guyana. Yep, and that is Guyanese people. It's kind of funny because we're part of a continent, but we are considered part of Caribbean culture. And and Guyana is the only English-speaking country in South America. So we're right by like Trinidad and Tobago. That's us.
Oh, well, I know where Trinidad and Tobago is because that's where my adopted little boy is. Like, well, he's not a little boy anymore. He just turned his big 30. I think he just turned 30. So.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, it's just a young boy that I kind of mentor in that. So nice. Beautiful place. I'd love to go one day. So if you're ever going back that way, let me know.
Yeah, will do.
So have you been back home?
No. When we left, there was quite a lot of violence going on. And so my parents, that was one of the reasons we immigrated to Canada. And I just haven't had an opportunity. We keep talking about it as a family to, go back and revisit all the places that I grew up, because I was there for 5 years. So it's still in the works, and we'll see what happens.
Well, if you do go back, I'll jump in the suitcase. Like, I promise I'd be really quiet. I'm jumping in everybody's suitcase. When they go on a trip, I'm like, pack me.
Sounds good.
So let's get into the number 3 and then the number 4. I want to know about these books because I bought number 2, I believe, at Christmas time last year. I have it here. For my grandchildren to read when they come over, and they absolutely love it. So what's the difference in 3 and 4?
So the series, for readers who don't know, the series is about Awesome and Rakshar, who live in Lionsgate in Washington, and Lionsgate is a research town. So Awesome's family has moved there because both his mom and dad are scientists. But as far as Awesome is concerned, this is like the creepiest place they have ever lived, because there's like floating lights in the sky. There's people that disappear into the mist. There's all these like weird goings on. And in book 1, there is this tree in the deserted cemetery that seems to be growing at a very, very fast rate and seems to be having a very negative effect on people. And Awesome is convinced that this is a supernatural entity from Caribbean folklore. Rakshar, on the other hand, thinks that because it's a science town, that probably what's happened is an experiment has gone wrong. So through the books, and through each book, there is a different supernatural creature that may or may not be in the town. And Rakshar and Awesome and their friends, they tackle this problem. So the series is wonderful because it showcases STEM. It showcases the scientific method. It's very sort of fact-based that way, but it also really, really celebrates the idea of the supernatural and spooky things that go on. And it's one of those great books that's like great for like your 7, 8, 9-year-olds, and also all the way up to your 12-year-olds. And the chills are exactly that. They're like spooky chills. They're not gonna like blow anyone out of the water or scare any young reader too badly. And the illustrations are from Lissy Marlin, who is absolutely incredible and brings such a level of delight and joy and creepy to the pages. And so in book 3, Awesome is convinced that there is a fair maid swimming in the waters, and fair maids are the Guyanese version of what mermaids would be, and they are not pleasant creatures at all.
So
Rockshar
they're really
again.
spooky.
They are very spooky. And the thing with fair maids is that the thing that differentiates them is that fair maids can come onto the land. So there is no getting away from them if they decide they're going to come after you.
They're coming for you.
And then in book 4, their student teacher may or may not be Old Hig, who is a Guyanese witch. And so, the books are really, like, they were so much fun to write and create because you get to go in, as a writer, I got to go into both sides of these characters, right? What if this is just science? But then again, what if this is supernatural? And the thing that I really love about creating these books is that there's such a strong nature of collaboration and support. Neither one of these characters is trying to prove the other one wrong. They are genuinely want to know what the truth is, and they genuinely want to know what the answer is. And if they are wrong, and that's fine. But the thing that I really, really love is that at the end of each book, it is up to the reader to decide which one it was, because it is never really answered. And, and both Rockshar and Awesome have very, very good reasons for why they believe what they believe. So the readers get to decide for themselves if it's spooky or if it's science.
I love that choice is there, because we need these types of books, right? When you're reading it, and then there's another one coming, but you get to make a choice, right? I love that you leave that open for the readers, and especially at a young age, to give them that option of picking and choosing, because each child is different. Some might say it's spooky, some might say it's science. Have you ever gone into a class and asked them, had a rally, like some are spooky, some are science, and then kind of figure it out?
That would just start a war, Miss Liz. No.
No. Especially with that age group, right?
You let folks decide.
So I'm looking now, and if you had them in the right order in the back of you, Natasha, you have book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I have book 1.
Oh,
I have
yes.
The first one.
The ghost tree.
So I have to get book 2 and 3 and 4, because my step granddaughter really loves it. She loves the storyline and all that, and brought good conversation too. So,
that's wonderful. So, I'm glad she's enjoying it. That's
well,
lovely.
And she thinks it's pretty cool that it's one of Miss Liz's tea time guests. So
nice.
She's like, you really know her? And I'm like, yeah. So it just makes it more fun, right? Like it it adds character to the story as well. Like when like I have this library of all the people that I know, all of their books, so I can say, I know that person, and then I show them pictures and they're like, oh, you do. So they're starting their own little library now of people that they would like to talk to or get to know. So it just opens that door, right? I know when I had you on last year for season 3, we talked about one story at a time. And that's why I wanted to put that in the video, because on your website, you have that one story at a time. So what does that mean for you, Natasha?
So yes, on my website, the tagline is change the world one story at a time. And what it's all about is just a reminder that for all of us, at heart, we are storytellers by default. We are storytellers. We come into the world trying to make sense of it. And I think when you think about the stories you were told and the stories you tell when you're small, like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and what is thunder really? And it's all these just sort of these magical, lovely ways that we find to explain the world. And then as we get older, we have these personal experiences too. They can be happy or sad. And they all kind of help create the worldview we have, right? And how we think of the people around us, and and how we want the world to change and how we think the world is beautiful all at the same time. And so changing the world one story at a time is just the reminder that our stories have value and our stories have worth. And we should always feel comfortable telling and sharing our stories, because that is what makes the world go round. And that is what, that's what makes the sun rise and set is our stories. So we should always feel comfortable sharing our stories.
And I thought it was really cool when I had you last year on, because I'm one cup of tea at a time and you're one story at a time.
That's right.
So we're all like one. Like it takes one at a time,
It does.
and it's just like your book series. It took one at a time to bring. So when you go into the next story in book 4, Natasha, do you bring any of the characters from book 3 into book 4?
Oh, all of the characters all the folks that show up in book 1 are there in book 2, 3, and 4. So, yeah. So it's something for those of you who are out there and you're looking to write stories for the littles, so the ages like 6 to 9 and up into like the 9 to 12, and you're looking at a book series, you always want to repeat characters, because it's a very great way to sort of set that foundation. Then when they jump into book 2, well, they already know these guys because they went through this adventure with them last time. And it just becomes that much easier for them to engage in the story.
And do you add new characters for each book?
Yes. Well, there's always a new creepy villain who may not be a villain, but who might be a villain, who shows up in every book. You just never know. So yes, there are additional folks who get added with each book.
So who did you add in book 4?
Oh, well, that's a great question. Let me think.
Because that's the last one, right? Book 4, or is there?
Book 4 is, so we've got the captain of the. Oh no, sorry, that's book 3. I was thinking, gee, that's odd. I don't remember the captain being in book 4. In book 3, we have the captain because that's the fair maid story. But in book 4, we have the student teacher, Miss Nazima. I'm trying to find where she comes in. Yes, so Awesome comes late to school because there's this odd thing that happens. He sees something like falling from the sky, and could it be a meteorite? Like, what is it? It's like a ball of fire, and it goes behind one of the houses, and he goes looking for it and ends up, falling into the hole. And someone who he does not know who it is, someone saves him. But when he crawls out of the hole, there is no one there, and the hole disappears behind him. And then later on, he sees somebody, and he's certain it's Ms. Nazima, the student teacher. But is she or isn't she the person that he saw? And is she a good person or a bad person? We don't know. We'll see. We'll see as we go through the pages of the story.
So is there a book 5 coming?
No, not yet. It's a 4-book series.
She's like, it's coming. She's all excited. You can always add this crazy tea lady in there somewhere,
That's true. That's true.
I always tell all of my authors that they come on Teatime, you could just slide Miss Liz in there somewhere, like.
Right? Well, we do know that real life people inspire a character. So you could very well either be a character or have contributed to the part of a character that shows up in someone's story.
Right? And not even have the name of Miss Liz, but when you buy the book, you're like, now I got it.
This person seems really familiar to me.
Right?
So
do you have any other books that you're working on at the moment, Natasha?
Yes. So along with this series, I do another series called the Lark and Connor Baugh Mystery Series. And that one is straight contemporary mysteries. So things like who stole the earrings from the general store, who's playing pranks at the community theater, who has destroyed this person's entry for the baking contest. And so book 8, I just handed in book 8. So I'm expecting edits back soon. And we're also just in the final stages of the anthology So one of Canada's most well-known characters, literary figures, is Anne of Green Gables. And Acorn Press has come out with an anthology for with an Anne for everyone. So it is Anne. It's Anne being taken on very, very different adventures, and this may not be the Anne that you remember or the Anne that you know, but it is an Anne. So in my case, my Anne is in an alternate dystopian future where they are burning books, and she has to make some very very important decisions.
Wow, that's incredible. When is that coming out?
I think it comes out either spring or fall of 2024.
Oh, have to keep our eyes open for that one, guys.
Yeah.
Because that one sounds interesting. And how did you come about doing that story?
The editors reached out to about, I think it was like 8 or 12 different authors. So Paul Kotcha, he's doing a boy Anne who also likes boys. Susie Maloney is doing a horror version of Anne. So there's quite a few, like there's some really, like I'm quite excited because again, you know, like when we talk about changing the world one story at a time and a writer's voice and the kinds of stories that we tell, here we are, we've all been sort of given the same parameters. And now we get to see how each of us has come up with our Anne. So I'm very curious to see what that's going to look like.
I think it's going to be really good because it sounds like it's going to be a really diverse book. So there's going to be a lot of diversity in there, a lot of understanding. And that's what Tea Time has been all day. We started off with multicultural and then we went into acceptance. And here we are with, you know, diversity of opening up and sharing our stories, you know, and everyone has the same project, but everybody comes up with something different.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. You know, and, you know, I was thinking too, like just how when you were talking about being a character in a book and, you know, one of the fun things about being a writer and is just like that inspiration we can get from all of these different sources and all these different places. Like I remember as a kid watching the X-Files and just loving, you know, loving the storyline, loving how creepy it was, and especially loving the episodes where you didn't quite know what had happened, right? You weren't quite sure if it was aliens or if it was something like completely explainable. And then, you know, when we were looking just like a few years ago when Stranger Things came around, and you had there's the straight supernatural like action adventure. And so that's, you know, when I was thinking about Spooky Sleuths, I just love the idea of doing like an X-Files meets Stranger Things with a Caribbean twist. Because I thought, you know, like, I don't know how many people know Caribbean folklore. I don't know how many people know about some of our myths and monsters, and like, what a great way to introduce them into like the larger world than just the Caribbean folk.
So is there a lot of mystery monsters in your background?
You know,
like
you know, it's really funny. Like, so years and years ago, for Canada's, oh shoot, not the centennial, but I think it was like the 125th birthday. But you know, there was a lot of celebrations going around, and there was a theater that wanted to kind of celebrate one of the things that I think makes Canada a really cool country, which is that we incorporate diversity and we pride and try very, very hard to be a multicultural country. And so there was a bunch of us that gathered, and the idea was that we would tell stories from our cultures and tell stories from our countries. And I was sitting and I was listening to people tell these stories, and a lot of them were like origin stories, right? Why the rain falls, and why like this particular thing, you know, always like, why is this stone there, and all these things. And I was laughing to myself because I was thinking, you know, I don't know that Caribbean culture has origin stories like that. And if there's any Caribbean listeners, like, you know, let me know, because I feel like what it is that defines Caribbean culture is this idea that, like, of course supernatural creatures exist, and of course there is these like there are these two worlds that exist, and it is your responsibility as the human to understand, you know, and to govern yourself accordingly and to not do silly things, you know. So in the ghost tree with Spooky Sis 1, the tree that inspired the story is called the Dutchman tree. And there's various different stories about what the Dutchman tree is. But the story that I grew up on as a kid was that these were the trees that housed the souls of the enslavers. And so you were never supposed to go near them because terrible things would happen. And there was lots of stories about, you know, people having accidents and, you know, all these kinds of things. There's actually a tree that was granted like countrywide status that it should never be touched because they were trying to bring it down to build a road. And there was just like all these really bizarre accidents that kept happening. And finally people were like, no, like you this is a Dutchman tree, you can't touch it. So when you go if you go to Guyana, you'll see like the road was built around the tree and the tree is still standing. Yeah. So, you know, so it's stuff like that too. Like the idea of the fair maids, that of course fair maids exist. Like who cares how they came to be? You know, the point is they are there and they own the waters at certain times, you know, during the evenings, and you don't go near them, right? You don't go near the water at certain times because it is not your place to go near the water during those times, you know?
Well, it's almost like here in Canada, well, in the United States too, I believe. At nighttime, you're not supposed to be on the water. You're supposed to bring your boat in. You're not supposed to be traveling on the water at nighttime.
Is there a myth around it? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but now you have me curious. I'm going to do some research because you have to come in when it gets dark.
Yeah.
For anybody that takes their boating license, like my spouse took it, and you have to be off the water when it turns dark. Like you cannot be on the water. Or you need to park yourself off the shore or something like so, you know, the water does have characters in it. I truly believe that as well, Natasha. Like I believe there's mermaids. I believe that there's things that happen because if you're sometimes sitting by the water in a park or something at nighttime, you hear these big splashes.
Yes.
You hear movement in the water and you're like, where is it coming from? You know, guys.
Well, the water is big, right? The water is very big. I mean, we're still, you know, all of a sudden you'll hear like scientists have just discovered this like gigantic fish that nobody knew existed until now. And you're like, yes, because water is deep and big, and there are many things that live in there that we will never know about. I mean, when I was a kid growing up, they had and now my brain it can't remember, but it's a zone in the ocean where, like, I think it's trying to remember how many miles it is, but there's a certain amount of like mileage in the ocean where sunlight can hit, and then after that there's no light.
It's deep, it's dark,
right? It's the abyss. And for years and years and years as a kid, I heard nothing can live there, and it never made sense to me that you would have this like vast ocean and all this water, and then you can only live in the first like layer,
of
course, right? And then, but of course, as like technology and science evolves, they're able to go deep, and all of a sudden they're finding like these amazing creatures. And I know there's a snail, like they've actually found creatures who live by the underwater volcanoes, and so they can live in these very, very hot climates, and they can like survive on the sulfate. And there was like this one particular snail that lived lived right next to these volcanoes, so they're living right in the fire of it. Their shells are actually iron, and I'm trying, so fact check me on this, friends who are listening, but there was something about them and sulfur. And so it was this article and something had come up, and someone underneath had commented and said, "That's not a snail, that's a dragon." You're right. I thought, yes, it's
and that's true. What I believe. I believe that there's water dragons.
Yeah.
You know, in the deep darkness. And I as you're sharing, Natasha, I'm thinking of Little Nemo. Like, you know, that fish with the light bulb.
Yes, and that's one of the, I can't remember, an angler fish maybe. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
I'm trying to remember.
That's exactly the fish that lives in that area, right? Yes.
Yeah, because I had Bob Gonzalez on, and he fishes the big deep sea, and that. And we talked about this fish because he had a picture with this fish, and I was like, oh, they really do exist,
Oh, they do. Yeah, they do. They do.
and
Well,
they're ugly.
well, well, I would say, respect and Liz, they have a different kind of beauty, because I think they're very interesting to look at. Like
Well, they're
I just
creepy, right? Like they're
like,
spooky.
yes, they are kind of spooky, but I like unusual. I like it when things are beautiful in non-traditional ways. And those teeth and that like little bulb that lights up,
Right?
I just feel like, yeah, you go along with your bad self. Like, why not? But there's also what do they call them? It's sea sheep, or yeah, I think that's what they're called, is sea sheep. So they're a little type of, I can't remember if I don't know if it's a slug. I can just see the picture of it. But if you ever Google sea sheep, and they're these tiny, tiny little creatures, and they are so super cute because they do look like little teeny tiny sheep that live in the water. And so yes, I mean, like, this is the fun part of writing and just existing in the world, is like there's so many things that we can take inspiration from for our stories.
Well, it's a good way to open up education as well, right? It gets
Mm-hmm.
people doing their research and checking if it's facts or fiction, Or
Yes.
like, I'm gonna check out the she sheep and see if they're cute. Like, they're probably the
I
cutest little
I
thing, but
I
they
think
probably
they're
bite.
adorable. No, 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 they're really tiny. Like they're super small. I think you need like a really very sort of specific lens to actually take a photo of them. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's just so many beautiful creatures that exist in this world, and we only ever really know a fraction of them, right? Like, when I'll be talking to someone, they'll mention like this kind of moth, or like this particular kind of caterpillar, or butterfly, and I've never heard of them before. This kind of snake, and then I'm like looking it up, and just being like so amazed at all the variety of beauty and life that exists in this world.
Yeah, there's just so much out there that we haven't even seen yet.
Hmm.
And then when we find it, we're like, oh, this much, how long has this been around? And then research 100 years, 1,000 years, and but there's a lot of things that are in the water that I don't even think we've even seen a quarter of it you
Oh
know
no, I don't think
like
so either. There's so much of the ocean that's hidden, which I love. I love
so
on so many levels, wondrous and creepy. I love.
so Natasha, have you ever thought of writing a book about the great big sea?
No, no, but I mean, I feel like I kind of got a chance to do that with "Don't Go Near the Water," which is the Spooky Sleuths 3 book, because I got to, there's awesome in the boat looking out into the waves, and like positive something is following the boat, and no one else seems to see it. And then just being like, no, 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 there's actually someone climbing up the boat, and he's like, he's grabbing Rockstar, and he's like, look, it's a fair maid. And she turns around and she's like, no, that's a seal, which was really fun, because I think it's a European myth, and I can't remember which culture it is, that they're called selkies. So they were
Oh,
mermaids, but they could change into seals. If my faulty memory is serving me properly, and all the remembrances, because one of the things, if you don't know, listeners, one of the things about publishing takes quite a while. So at the point in time a book comes out, right? So if a book came out today, that book was probably contracted a year and a half or 2 years ago. So with writers, like, we're always kind of moving on to the next project. And so there's only so much, at least for me, there's only so much room my brain, my brain has. But I'm pretty sure it's selkies, and they would turn into seals, to hide themselves from the humans.
I think that's really cool. And I bet you they do exist. There's a
Right?
lot of things that transform, and like, even human beings. Like, when I'm walking, sometimes I'm like, is that a bot?
Hmm.
Like, I'm starting to look at people now to see like, if they're walking a little different, if they're walking too straight, like the
Hmm.
movement, the footsteps. Yeah, I'm on guard. I'm looking, and we have a lot of things that are coming that are futuristic, and I think,
Hmm.
they're going to put it in the middle of everyday activities just to see if we're really paying attention.
Well, it's interesting you say that. So years and years ago, and I can't remember the term they had. It was marketing and promotions. And what they would do is they would hire people to go into like coffee shops to discuss products. And not like, oh, hi, have you heard of this product? They would have them they would hire them and they would go in and just be like, customers. So you're sitting at a table and you can hear, these two people talking about like the latest, I don't know, iPhone, Android, what have you, or like the latest book by this person. Oh my gosh, isn't it the most amazing thing? And you're thinking, oh, yeah, this is a great conversation. But no, they've actually been hired to do it, which I think is really interesting. But and I don't know if they still do it. It was like really, really early on, like maybe early 2000s. I kept hearing about this. But when you think about technology, there's a restaurant, and I don't know what city it is in Japan, but they use robots to serve you, and the robots are powered by people who are, I think, paraplegic or quadriplegic. So they couldn't serve you, however it's set up. So they get to control the robots that serve you, and it's paid work, like, you know what I mean. So, and I just really appreciated that level of like accommodation and accessibility. I think, like, you know one of the things I really like in the way the world is evolving is that we are becoming more aware that not everybody comes to the world in the same way, right? And
Yeah.
so, you see, it sort of started happening during the pandemic, but even now, where grocery stores will have certain times in the day where they won't play the music. They're going to lower the lighting so that people who have sensory issues or who can get overstimulated really quickly, they can go in, they can do their shopping. They don't have to worry about just being oversaturated with all of this noise and light. And I just really like that. I just think, like, yeah, like, why? I don't think that's a hard thing to give people dignity and some movement. And I like it when people give me dignity. So,
Yeah. I never really
Yeah.
paid attention to that. I'm going to be checking that out because I go shopping at different times and I'm going to see.
Yeah, they usually advertise it. Like, there's usually a sign that says, between this hour and this hour, we are accommodating, by lowering the lights and not having music. And there's something else that they do with that. I can't remember what it is. But yeah, I was just really impressed. I mean, again, we come back to, we wouldn't know that people need things like this unless they tell us, right?
Yeah.
So this is why it's important to share our experiences and share our stories. Like, a year and a half, 2 years ago, I read this really great article, and the writer was deaf. He identified as deaf, and he was talking about how he had just learned that there was a saying in the hearing world, that things are falling on deaf ears. And he said, he was like, and he wrote it so beautifully, and I wish I could find this article again. But he was talking about how much it hurt him to hear this, because he said, first of all, like, the idea that deafness is something bad, for lack of a better word. And he was talking about the fact that he really loves the silence, and he loves coming to the world in this way, and this is how he knows the world. But then the thing he said that I thought was really important, he said the thing that bothered him most is that the saying falling on deaf ears means someone who has evidence to truth and is remaining contrary or ignorant because. And he said the idea that deafness would be on the same level or be equated with being willfully ignorant or stubborn in the face of truth, he said that was really hurtful. And it was harmful because he was like, I'm not that person, and my deafness does not make me that person. And I thought, yeah, this is exactly, and unless he said it, no one's, many of us wouldn't understand that. So I just, like I said, I just really love hearing about people's different experiences and the different ways that they move in the world, and how the world, slowly, sometimes too slowly, but slowly moves to accommodate so that people can understand that they have value and place in this existence.
I love, Natasha, that you're talking about deafness, because our afternoon guest is deaf. So today was the first time we were getting captions on StreamYard, and the importance of bringing caption to all platforms, because they're not on all platforms. So,
No.
the awareness, opening up the mind to the differences out there, and and stop looking at them as difficulties. Look at them as a difference of opening new doors, new opportunities, and that as well. Because this afternoon, Linda had said that her losing her hearing was also a blessing, because she was able to meet the deaf community, advocate for the deaf community. She wouldn't have had any of that if she hadn't have gone deaf. So,
yeah, that's amazing.
So, Natasha, I want to get into your tea. So,
Okay.
Last year you gave me an incredible tea. So this year I want to see if you're going to give me the same tea, because I'm going to go back and check next year's
It's
notes.
the Caribbean tea. It's the Guyanese tea, right? It's orange pico black tea with lots of milk and lots of sugar.
She gives me a flavor of tea instead of the words of tea. Natasha, I want you did this.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Like,
well, listen, I love tea. And I feel like the world is solved with a cup of tea. So that's kind of where I always go. Yeah.
So, Natasha, if I give you the letters TEA, what 3 words would you give me that start with those 3 words? 3 letters.
Tea every day, always, please.
Tea every day, always. You know what? That is you, Natasha, because
it really is, sadly.
It is you. Anybody that knows Natasha knows that tea every day, always.
Tea every day, always. Yes.
I love it. It's a really fruitful cup of tea. So now I want to get into your word. I asked you to describe yourself in 1 word, and you gave me changey.
Oh yes.
I think that's how you would pronounce it, right?
It is. I'm changey. Well, because the idea that we are always this one thing is not necessarily accurate to our experiences, right? Sometimes we're quite happy, and sometimes we're not. And like for any of us of a certain age, I mean, sometimes you get up and you're like, oh, I feel much younger than I did, than my age says. And then some days you get up and you're like, oh, I see, the warranties are off on my knees. Okay. Or you're like hobbling around. Someone goes, what happened, man? What did you fall? Did you hurt yourself? And you're like, oh, I sneezed wrong. So some
you
days
gave me a crack.
Right? So changey. And I like that. That gives me freedom to embrace wherever I am in the moment, emotions and experience.
Well, and it's different. It's not like anybody else, right? It's not like I'm strong, I'm resilient, I'm, it's changey. I like
changey.
it. It's changey. It's got a nice ring to it. So I asked you your favorite color, and you were like, I don't really have a favorite color, but if I had to pick, you pick gray. The shades of gray.
Specifically, the way the sky can get that like dove gray, dark blue color right before a storm hits. That color, I love that color. But I always used to say, oh, gray's my favorite color. And I was in a school visit one time, and this girl put up her hand and she was like, Natasha, gray is not a color, it is a shade. I was like, oh dang, okay, so I don't have a favorite color, I have a favorite shade. And with the color, again, it just kind of depends on my mood, because I'm changey, right? Some days I really like green, and some days I really like purple.
So I love that people don't always pick colors. I like when they pick shades, or signs. Some people will say, Mrs., I don't like color at all. And I'm like, ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It opens up the conversation. It opens up to understanding why you don't like color, why you certain colors might remind you of something bad that you don't want to remember, So, but I want to get into your pets now, because we're almost done here, but I want to know about these pets that you try to be the boss to.
Well, right now we have a 16-and-a-half-year-old kitty who would be very, very annoyed to hear me say anything remotely like I am the boss of the house. So to be clear, in my spare time, I try to convince him that I am the boss of the house, and I do not ever succeed. Like, I genuinely have to build in, like, I've learned how to write with, like, with a notepad on my hand in these very odd positions, because he's very much like, I have eaten, I have had some water, and now you will sit beside me and rub my tummy for half an hour before I go to sleep. Or, I see you are awake, you may come and rub my tummy. And he's a very, like, I'm sure many of us have these, like, very vocal, talkative kitties. So there is no ignoring him.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite memories of him is, I think we'd had him for like a couple of weeks, and he had come to us because someone had dumped him and his siblings in a box overnight at an off-leash dog park, and someone had found them and taken them into the rescue. And so I had this unbelievably young kitten, and I had no idea if he knew how to use a litter box. And then I'm trying to figure out, how do you teach a kitten to use a litter box? So we go through this whole process of me putting him in a litter box and, getting there and then rewarding him every time he used the litter box. And I'm patting myself on the shoulder, just being like, I've done such a great job. Not realizing that if you give a kitten treats every time they use a litter box, they come to expect treats every time they use the litter box. And during the day, it's fine. But I mean, like, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and he's waking me up because he wants treats. And I don't know how to say no to my cat. So I'm like, okay, yeah, let's, like, I'm just like barely awake, like my voice is all, and so my husband said to me one day, look, just close the door, and he's going to scratch at the door for a couple of minutes, then he's going to get bored, he's going to go away, and this is how you get him off of it. And I'm like, okay. So this one night I close the door and I hear him, and he had a meow that sounded like he's saying hello. So, and then he's very emotional. So you would hear meow, meow, and then all you'd hear is meow. I'm just like, oh no. But I'm just thinking to myself, I'm strong. I'm a grown person. I can do this. And then I hear the scratching, and it's just like ripping my heart down. I'm thinking, no, I've got to stop this. I've got to stop this. Right. He cannot, because we can't live our whole lives with me never being able to sleep through the night. And so I hear him go, like, the scratching stops, and I'm like, okay, good. Then after a couple of seconds, I hear this like really odd sound, and then it stops. And a couple of seconds later, I hear it again. And then I realize that he is taking his 3-pound body, going down to the end of the hallway, running at full tilt, and try to break down the door. So it took 2 times, and I like ran to the door, opened the door, I grabbed him, because I was like, I love every swaggery part of you that thinks you can break down this door, but you were like 2 tiny pounds, and you were too little to be doing this. So he got the treats, and like I said, he is almost 17. And I have not slept through the night, and I am so okay with that, because after we get treats, we get cuddled, and I don't know if there's anything quite like falling asleep to your little pet, curled up around you, and with kitties and that, like, those little rumble tummies going, and that's an excellent lullaby to fall back asleep to. So,
well, it's the patterns we get into with our pets, right? They expect it from us. It's like my cat; she's 8 years old, and every time I go out, even if I just go for 2 seconds, I come back in, it's treat time.
Yes.
I taught her that as soon as mom goes out and comes back, you're going to get a treat. And I've taught her to give me high five. So without the high five, she doesn't get it. So,
yes.
So, and then to get water, it's to go to the sink. Then I have to stand her, wait for her to drink the water.
Yes.
Then she's like talking. And then it's a 1, 2, 3 countdown, like a little kid. Like, our pets kind of are our stories as well, right?
Yeah, they really are.
Have you ever written a story, Natasha, on your pet?
No, but you find in a lot of my books, animals, pets are there, because I love them unbelievably. And yeah, just going back to what you said, there was someone who had posted online, and they said, if you have trouble, if you have a cat and you have trouble remembering to take your medication, whenever you take your medication, give your cat a treat. Because you may forget to take your medication, your cat will not forget their treat. And it's true. They are excellent little reminders. You know, cats and dogs too, right? It's time for the walk. What are you doing? Let's go. Why are you still sleeping? Do I need to pull the blanket off you? Okay, I'm gonna have to pull the blanket off you. Let's go. Right.
Yeah, my little one knocks stuff off the dresser. She'll look like right at me and poof.
Yeah.
I'll be like, okay, I'm getting up. Like,
I don't know if you ever saw someone, they said the ultimate proof that the world is not flat is because if it was, cats would have knocked everything off of it by now. And I just thought, yeah, that is a true cat owner speaking right there.
So Natasha, if anybody would like to get any of your books, because you have a lot of series, so if people go to your website, they can see all the series you have, correct?
Yes, they sure can, and they can get the books from Amazon, Indigo, Barnes and Noble, and if they have an independent bookstore that they really love, they can get those books there too as well.
So how many series do you have altogether?
That is a great question, Miss Liz. I've actually never really counted. Off the top of my head, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, 6, 7-ish. Maybe give or take a couple.
Yeah, because you got quite a bit. Like if you go to the website, you guys can find all of the incredible books. I also found some true crime books.
Oh, the true, yeah. Those are urban fantasy. Yes.
So how many genres do you write in, Natasha?
I think the fastest answer is to say the only genre I have not been published in yet is steampunk, but any other genre I'm published in. So well, I feel like steampunk is the next thing on the list.
2024 steampunk.
Right? I can check all my boxes off then.
There you go, right? So what final message would you have for anybody that would like to get into writing?
Just do it. I mean, like what's the worst thing that happens? You write, you find out it's not for you. What's the best thing that happens? You write, you find out it is for you. So just do it.
So, and if anybody would like to work with you, how can they reach you?
Folks can reach me through my website. There's a contact button, so they can use that to shoot me an email.
Do you want to read out your email address for the audio people?
Oh, if you go to the website, it's like a what do you call it? Like a system. You just like, so you go to natashadeen.com, NATASHADEEN.com, and then you click on contact, CONTACT, and then the form, I guess that's the word we'd use. The form comes up and you can put your message in there and hit send, and I shall receive it.
Awesome. And that's how it's done, guys. We just do different flows, different shows, different kind of teas, and we do tea every day, always with Natasha. So
tea every day, always. Yes.
I love that. I love that you said that, Natasha, because that is you. Like,
well, obviously that was the same answer I gave you last year.
Like last year, you were like giving me all the flavors teas, and I'm like, here we go. You're a tea drinker. I got that. So
yes, I am.
Before we leave, Natasha, what is your favorite tea?
My favorite tea is orange pekoe. Tetley tea, orange pekoe. I love that tea.
So do you drink it with sugar and milk, or do you just?
I absolutely drink it with sugar and milk. Yes. The more, the merrier. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, Natasha, for joining me on Tea Time. I want to thank all the listeners and viewers. If you're listening to the replay, please push #replay so I can see where you're coming in from. If you would like to see a topic, or you'd like to see a guest that was on any season 1, 2, or 3, and 4, you can reach out to me and say, Miss Liz, we'd like to have them back. We want to know more. We want to have some updates, all of that good stuff. There are some surprise shows that are coming up in October, so stay tuned for that. All I can say is somebody from season 1 is coming back, and somebody who was on season 4 enjoyed himself. He's a he, that's a clue, is coming back because he enjoyed himself so much and he wants to give you part 2. So that's all I can say for now. And we'll be back next Thursday, same time, same place, with 3 new TEAs. And share these tea times. Subscribe to the channel. And let's just make a difference one cup of tea at a time, because that's how it rolls. We flow and we serve tea in different styles on Tea Time with Miss Liz. And again, Natasha, thank you so much. It was an honor.
Thank you so much. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, thank you.
And we will be back next Thursday. Check it out because Miss Liz will be back for you for more tea.